Almost 30 years ago to the date, our brothers and sisters in South Africa will cast their vote today, the 29th day of May, the year 2024. It is a momentous occasion because we know that once again, the South Africans have an opportunity to express their views through the ballot to determine which political party will govern South Africa. It is a unique voting system that is not common in many African countries. Not common because primacy is given to the political party, so that the voter votes for the African National Congress or for EFF or for Mkhonto Wesizwe, the new kid in the block, or for DA or other political parties. What is significant is that the party that gains the majority of the votes then deploys those who will be the members of parliament and those who will serve in other capacities, and also deploys the persons who will serve as the president and the deputy president. The model has its advantages in that it gives strength to the political party. And one hopes that this time round, the South Africans will express their views in a manner that is beneficial to the people of South Africa. We all know that South Africa is still reeling from the effects of apartheid. There are quite a number of issues that remain outstanding. We may have regained independence, political independence, but there is a sense in which there are those who are dissatisfied with the land question, which, as someone said, and I agree with them, is the last colonial question. It is the truth that that particular issue has not been resolved and that too much land still remains in the hands of the whites. And it is the view of many, including myself, that until and unless the question of land is resolved, the ghosts of apartheid will continue to dance their macabre dance, and the issues in South Africa will not be settled. It is understandable, therefore, that EFF, particularly as a political party, has been in the forefront of advocating for the resolution of the land question. The other issue that I believe will be on the table is the economic situation. Many people still feel left out, that they are not enjoying the dividends that they were promised when in 1984 apartheid was destroyed, at least in its much more visible forms. And one hopes that that is something that is going to be on the table when the voters are casting their votes today on the 29th day of May. Of course, there are other issues outside of the domestic arena. It cannot be denied that South Africa remains the largest economy in the SADC region and indeed within the continent of Africa. And many do hope that South Africa will play a leading role in the African context. And there are many things to look at. How are we going to use the strength of South Africa in different sectors of African economy to help liberate African economies? How are they going to use their natural resources? How are they going to use those resources for the benefit of the countries in SADC? How are they going to ensure that they use their diplomatic position to push things that will help liberate the continent of Africa, which, despite the fact that we claim we enjoy political independence, in many ways are still shackled down by things that arrest political development and therefore interfere with social cohesion. Another issue that I think is going to be very important in this regard is going forward, how is Africa going to benefit from a renewed South Africa? We know that South Africa is the major representative of the African continent in the emerging equation within the BRICS. Is their involvement going to ensure that Africa begins to liberate ourselves from the shackles of Western economies? Is it going to ensure that South Africa plays a leading role rather than playing the role of the gooseberry for China and India and Brazil? Is it going to be the reality that whichever political party and the president that emerges from that election is going to be a champion for Pan-Africanism. And when we talk about Pan-Africanism, we are talking about a continent that is going to give practical meaning not only to the moral and sentimental and character that was infused into Pan-Africanism in 1960s, but is going to give practical meaning to Pan-Africanism as understood by younger Africans. Younger Africans are now saying, when we talk about Pan-Africanism, we don't just want to romanticize about it. We don't want to philosophize about it. We want a Pan-Africanism that is going to address the totality of our lives. And what is the totality of our lives? That when we talk politics, it's politics that is going to deliver in the economic arena. It is politics that is going to deliver in the industrial sectors of our economy. It is politics that is going to impact positively in agriculture. It is politics that is going to impact positively in the area of education. It is politics that is going to ensure that we enjoy the dividends of the fourth industrial revolution when we are thinking about artificial intelligence. So that Pan-Africanism is going to deal with those things. Pan-Africanism is going to ensure that we liberate ourselves from the shackles of other people's currencies. What are we going to ensure? What is going to ensure that we have a common currency that eases trade within the continent of Africa? What are we going to do to ensure that there is free movement of people within the continent of Africa to give practical meaning to Africa Continental Free Trade Area? And I say that the South African elections are critical in this regard, because when one looks at the manifestos of the key players, some of them are quite visible in the manner that they talk about Pan-Africanism and in the manner that they are talking about changing Africa and changing the continent in a fundamental way so that the continent can play a critical role going forward. So the elections that are being held in South Africa today for the South Africans has domestic significance, as it should, so that the man and woman in Gauteng would want to know how their housing is going to be taken care of. They would want to know how their health care is going to be taken care of, how their education is going to be taken care of, how their public transportation is going to be taken care of, how their social welfare is going to be taken care of. But those who are observing from outside of the continent of Africa at three levels. Level number one, those within the SADC region who believe that South Africa is an anchor economy. They want to know whether they are going to be allowed to participate in the activities in Africa, so that if you are from Malawi, you are from Lesotho, you are from Mozambique, you're going to be allowed to work in South Africa without the difficulties that sometimes emerge from time to time. Those from within the continent of Africa are also looking at South Africa as a place where there are economic dividends. Remember that there are quite a number of South African companies operating within the continent. If you look at the area of mobile telephony, MTN is present in very many areas. If you look at the banking sector, you have banks such as Stanbic, and those within the continent are going to look at that. Those in the diaspora are also going to look at South African elections. Are we going to be allowed to participate in that economy in the different sectors? And there are sectors which are much more prominent, such as mining. I've already talked about agriculture. So these are important elections. It is only 30 years since the ghost of apartheid was exorcised, but we know that that ghost still dances around, wanting to rear its ugly head. So this is a day when we who are observing from outside wish our South African brethren a good day, and we are not the ones to judge who they are going to elect, but we believe that they are going to put into consideration all these fundamentals to address the domestic, to address the regional, to address the African and the diaspora, and that ultimately a South Africa emerges that in truth is independent. I always remember fondly the words of a famous African who once said that it is possible to gain political freedom without being free. I hope that when South Africans are casting their vote, they are thinking of ensuring that gaining political freedom with structures of independence, that is having a national anthem, having blacks as heads of institutions is not sufficient. It is important that all sectors of the economy are properly liberated and that there is a presence of South Africans in the critical levers of the economy, critical levers of politics, so that when we talk about South Africa, we are talking about a country that is strong in fact and whose activities impact positively on her population and the entire continent and ultimately the world.
So you heard well Professor PLO LUMUMBA on what he said. Professor PLO LUMUMBA looks into the intricacies of the 2024 South Africa elections, as it plays a significant role in the continent, and this election draws interest from all members. All we know that South Africa goes to election on this day, unlike in other African nations where citizens vote for personalities. South Africa vote for parties, and the winning party forms government of by appointing president, vice president, and member of parliament. While ANC, the oldest party, has remained largely strong, but this time around faces a huge challenges from economic freedom fighters and Democratic Alliance, among others, party. So Professor PLO LUMUMBA discusses some issues where he addressed the issues to address in this 2024 general election in South Africa. Also, Professor PLO LUMUMBA talked about South Africa influences in Africa's economy, Pan-Africanism, and defined by the youth. Also, South Africa's election significance in Africa and globally. At the end, Professor PLO LUMUMBA discussed about history of political parties in South Africa. So, brothers and sisters, hope you listened well, and hope that South Africa now have the opportunity to select the man who will lead the South Africa to the South Africa that they want, because South Africa needs to own the land. South Africa needs to own means of production, also in money system. There's a lot of things that not only in South Africa but also in the whole continent of Africa. Now we need to select the leader or the president who will be able to know the system and firstly benefiting the citizens first, not for being there at the position of president for the interest of the former colonies. Now South Africa and Africa need the man who will understand the system. As what's going on in West Africa, there we see Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali have formed their own region, which is Sahel region, and that is the real sign that Africa now start for the liberating of African child. And I remember the speech of Dr. Kana Chiumbori Kwao said that Burkina Faso is leading the way to the Africa that we want. So let us join the movement of selecting people who knows the system and who knows where we are going to. So brothers and sisters, let us wish all South Africans to select the man who they want and who they think that this one will be the right one to lead us to what we want. Let us leave this to South Africans, and we other nations, let us select who we think will be the right one for next president of South Africa. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share this video.